What's up everyone, welcome back to a video with me and my daughter's toy car. Well, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic day. I thought we would sit down today and talk about the four, I'm gonna call these the four tenets that are requirements for game developers to be successful. And here's why this matters to you. This might be a little bit of a longer video. I wanna talk about why this matters for you. Whether you are a player or a collector or an investor, I think that these four things are quintessential to your relationship with any trading card game, whether that be Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Flesh and Blood, Yu-Gi-Oh, Metazoo, whatever it is very important that you understand how these things work as an ecosystem. I've seen a lot of conversation happening with charts and graphs and whatever. I wanted to give you a 3D analysis of this. So I asked my 2-year-old if I could borrow her car and she was okay with it. It was crazy. So let's get into it. This car represents the game developer, okay? The game developer who, any game developer, so if you're Flesh and Blood, you're talking Legend Story Studios, if you're Magic the Gathering, you're talking WotC, whatever it is, any game developer, any game studio has to have a few things. Now, I just guessed it. I'm sure there's more of these. I'm not a game developer, and honestly, before we get too deep into this video, I just want to say I'm no professional. This is just from my TCG knowledge over the last, 10 years, but also now that I am running a game store and all that stuff, some things that I've noticed. So any game developer is going to have to do a few things. Number one, they are responsible for printing the cards, right? They've got to get the cards into people's hands. They've got to play test the game. They have to hire play testers. They have to spend time play testing. They have to do all the logistics. They got to get cards from different areas to the distribution hubs. They have to make sure that cards get there before the release date. They have to do communications. They have to talk with people all around the globe. This is a global industry we're talking about. They have payroll. They have to do graphic design and hire artists. And they also have to work in a new creative design space to make their game unique. And I'm sure there's more things. And here's the thing, that game developer has to be able to move along. They have to be able to move forward. They have to start in one place and go to the next place. And in order for, what my theory here that I'm presenting to you is that in order for a game developer to go from here to there, they have to have all four wheels. And also these four wheels share two sides, okay? So on one side you have the LGS and the distribution hubs. And I put in content creators here because I really think in the future you're gonna see LGS and content creators be a vital role to the playability of the game as we move forward in the world and as we move more into a digital age that is happening. That doesn't mean the LGSs are going away. LGSs are required. LGSs are important. I want to play games in person, but I also think content creators, I'm also extremely biased. On the second side of this, you have the age-old dynamic between players and I'm going to say collector investors. Now, I know a lot of collectors don't like to be lumped in with the investor side. I understand that there are differences between collectors and investors, but also understand that their main goals are the same thing and that they interact with the game in a much similar way and they interact with the game developer in a much similar way. So let's talk about each of these things. I want to hit the one that I think you don't think that you care about as much first. Everyone knows that this dynamic between collectors and investors, players and collectors and investors is really important. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to talk first about this relationship between the LGS and the distribution hub. I think that this conversation is a balance, right? Again, you've got the balance going on. This needs to be perfectly balanced. If you removed one of these wheels, it would, I think, tip over. And that's the point of this. So what is the balance between an LGS, your local game store where you play the game, and of course the distribution hub? So in the United States, there's like 5, 6, 7 main distributors, and then there's a bunch of kind of like auxiliary distributors. And the main conversation that I think I want to have here is the idea of risk versus reward. So a distribution hub, they care about a few things. They care about timelines, they care about storage space, they care of having like a wide range of offerings. They want to get as much product in and out the door as possible. I don't know if you know this, but when you order from a distributor, they prioritize pallets. So if you're able to order a pallet, this is why people like Rudy from Alpha Investments is able to buy things like a pallet, because it's much easier for a distributor. If they're able to receive a pallet and then send out a pallet, they don't have to spend all the time breaking it down. I worked in a lumber yard for 4 years, something like that, and one of the biggest things we practiced was not touching the lumber more than once. Like, you wanted to pick it up and bring it to where it needed to go, not bring it over here and bring it over there. And distribution, they want to do the same thing. They don't want to be touching the product that much. They want to get it in the door and out the door as quick as possible, so timelines are essential. And their risk is holding on to the product for too long. Their risk is that they're not able to move the product from their door to the LGS's door in order to make their product. That is how they work effectively. We're going to talk about that in 1 minute. Now, on the other side of things, you have these LGSs, right? So that's the distribution hub, and then you've got the LGS, and this is the dynamic. Again, I just said that the dynamic is risk versus reward. LGSs have all sorts of other risks, right? They have the player base, they have the margins, they have the liquidity of product, they have equality between other LGSs and competition between other LGSs. And then they also have the communication aspect between them and players, as well as them and the game designer. And we can get into this a lot, but kind of the key factor I want to talk about here is this relationship between distribution and LGSs. The way that it works in this ecosystem is that, and where it breaks down, is this idea of risk and reward. You see, when distribution doesn't take equal risk as an LGS, in other words, when they require you to buy a product in order to get another product, right? So if you're an LGS and you're like, hey, I want this first edition product, and they're like, okay, we'll sell you this first edition product, but in order to sell it to you, you have to commit to buying this unlimited product. Then what they are doing is the distribution hub is reducing their risk. They are reducing their risk. And the relationship between the distribution and the game designer is that they have to take some of this risk and the LGS has to take some of this risk. But when that happens, the distribution is removing all their risk and they're giving all the risk onto the LGS. And that's why it's very, very important that the game developers have conversations with the distribution to make sure that doesn't happen. And then in addition, what's happening is distribution is also raising prices. Something like Crucible of War Unlimited going out of print, and then a distributor raising the price by $5 a box. Now they have decreased their risk and they are increasing their reward. Meanwhile, increasing the risk of an LGS and decreasing the reward. You see how that works? This is where this gets into the idea of distribution playing their game, which is, doing what they're supposed to do instead of playing a game, which is to receive a product and then to ship it out as quick as possible to the LGS. That is the ideal. That is what distribution should be doing. They should be distributing the product. Meanwhile, the LGS should be receiving the product and giving it and selling it to stores. But what is starting to happen, and what started to happen in 2020, when we had all these crazy things and the logistical nightmares and whatever, and we saw the skyrocketing prices, the distributors decided to say, hey, we're gonna take on some increased risk. We're gonna touch the product a little bit more. We're gonna hold on to it a little bit more. We're gonna move it from here to there and just see what happens so we don't miss out on the reward that the LGS is getting. And so they started holding some product back. Now, when you break down that line, that's like essentially removing an entire wheel. I didn't practice this. That's like essentially removing an entire wheel from the system, and the wrong wheel came off. But you get what I'm saying. It's like removing an entire wheel from the system. And now here you're going and it just kind of falls. It just kind of tanks. It's just trying to chug along and it gets tipped over, okay? Because you've removed a wheel, the wheel's not doing what it's supposed to. So that's the relationship between between LGSs and distribution, and that relationship has to be healthy. They both need each other. Distribution doesn't have the consumer, unless you're one of these shady distributors that's selling online, whatever. Distribution doesn't have the consumer in order to accept the product, and they don't have the consumer in order to experience the product. And in another way, the LGS needs to be able to provide the game developer with what they do best, which is a place to play the game. And the LGS can't provide the game developer with a place to play the game if they can't make any freaking money. That's the way this works. If they can't make money, if they can't make margins, if they can't provide food for their family in order to support a play space, then the game developer is not going to have anybody to play their game because there's nowhere to play. And that's, again, I think content creators will fit in there in the future as I think the world moves online. So that's an important trait, okay? Now, I got my wheels all mixed up when I put them back together, so let's kind of fix this. But the second side of this, and there's plenty more, and I'm very curious to see what you think in the comment section, what your reaction is to that, and what you have to say. Because there's plenty more to that. I'm trying to give like a wide range, also trying to give you some value here in your conversation in your day. So now the other side of this is this collector and investor versus player. And this one, I hate this conversation. I get this commented on my videos. I would say twice a week somebody comments, why don't you just play the game, man? Stop talking about money. Why don't you just play the game? Well, that's great, and I agree. You should play these games, and I do play these games. There's plenty of gameplay content on my channel, plenty of live streams, plenty of deck techs, plenty of whatever. What I love, what I really gravitate towards in collectible games is the collecting and the investing. It's something that I enjoy, and that's good because it's part of this ecosystem. Don't forget, and I hope I said this at the beginning of the video, the ultimate goal here is for the game developer to make money. If the game developer can't make money, then they can't do all these things that they have to do. So you as a player need the game developer to be able to make enough money to do this play testing, to do the logistics so you get the cards before your big event, to communicate to the LGS, to make the graphic look good and make the graphic design and the art look good, and to create, you know, this immersive design space to make the game fun. You as a player need the game developer to make as much money as possible to make their game good. And if you don't have the collector or investor, I'm sorry, you can just throw the whole thing out the window because it doesn't matter, because they're not going to be able to make enough money to make your game good. I gotta get that back. So it's very important that you understand the dynamic between you as a player and the collector and investor. You know what I don't hear anybody complaining? I don't hear anybody commenting on my videos that are about playing. Why don't you just collect and invest in the game, man? Why don't you just invest? You know why that is? Because the collector and the investor understands that they need the player. They need the player so that this game developer can keep developing games. That's the way this works. Now, Pokemon, you know, it's a little bit different. Pokemon, I think honestly the market for Pokemon is very, very heavily skewed towards collector investor. It may not be this kind of 50-50 dynamic that I'm protruding. And I think some games can be successful with that. And I think Pokemon has done a great job of branding themselves into this mega IP that relies more on a collector and investor and a gotta catch 'em all on the TV shows and all that stuff than it does on the player. Now I know people play Pokemon. I don't actually know anybody who plays Pokemon, like, actually. I know people who, like, play it at the kitchen table, you know, that's great. But, you know, I think this is kind of what some, you know, different games will go towards. I think Metazoo is starting out with this collector investor, or they've been put into a place where they have to start out with this collector investor because of the way that the market has gone. I think they're going to work on getting this player base going. I think that's why you're seeing second edition coming out. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that. The point is that you need both of these. And it may not be 50-50. I'm going to argue that it should be 50-50 right now, but it may not be 50-50. So here you go. Players need access to the cards. They need play testing. They need metas. You know, they need a release schedule. They need continuity in the sets and the ability to kind of have this thematic approach. Players need a lot of things, okay? and a lot of expensive things that you may not think of. When you don't have playtesting, it really makes this whole thing very difficult to move. When you break the game, you're starting to see things like this in Magic the Gathering. There's been a lot of conversation in other games, and it's just, it doesn't work without the playtesting. So as a player, you need the company to be able to invest in playtesting. Now, as an investor and a collector, your stuff is a little different. Collectors, investors like shiny things, they like small print runs, they like quality, like really nice quality. They want to get the BGS 10s, and they like eye appeal. And all those things cost money, and I don't fully understand that kind of thing. Like I don't have a background in printing. I've never gone to Carta Monday or anything like that. But I do know this, that it does require a lot of time with the graphic and arts department and that kind of thing to produce these shiny things. There's a lot of printing that goes in, a lot of testing and all that kind of stuff. So it's super important that the investors and collectors have those things. And in order to have those things, you have to have the game developer who has been able to produce a game, again, produce a game that people want to play. This whole thing moves along. They need to be able to produce a game that people want to play at an LGS that supports your LGS, so that when you go in and you don't play in an event and you don't do the things and you don't, you don't hang out and buy the soda and buy the chips, you just walk in and buy your booster box and get the heck out of there. You need that LGS to be able to support the game developer. So this whole thing, the whole point of this video is to say that you yourself, whether you are a distributor, whether you're a LGS, whether you're a player, whether you're a collector, you're honestly not that freaking important. You are a part of you are a cog in the wheel that is to get this game developer to make money so that you can keep enjoying their product, okay? And at the end of the day, you're just not that important. You're super important to me because you're watching my videos, and that means a ton to me, so you're important to me, but in the system, you're just not, you're one of 4. You're 25%. You're the minority. Every single one of us is the minority in this. So when you say, why don't you just play the game, man? I hate all these collector investors that's ruining. Well, actually, the collector investors contribute a lot to the ecosystem. And players, you can contribute a lot to the ecosystem. And collector investors, you need to have respect for the players. You can't just buy out all these cards and make it impossible for the people to play. And game companies, you have to respect the players and make it so it's accessible for players to play the game, so your decks aren't too expensive to play. And game developers, you have to respect the collector investor by not overprinting things and by not putting too much circulation. And you have to respect the game developing is hard. Listen, you have to respect the LGS by not screwing them over, by giving all the big box stores all the product, and by not holding a distributor's account. Game developers, you have to respect your distribution and hold them accountable. And distribution, you can't screw over the LGS. LGS, you can't screw over your distributor. And you know, I heard people who are LGSs who made orders and then don't take them. You suck. Don't do that. You can't screw over one of the wheels. We all need all these wheels. We need them all. And we need them all. So like, I don't understand why we're all fighting. Why can't we just get along and like understand? You want to start talking about other games? You know how you support LGSs? LGSs stay afloat by supporting multiple game developers so that they get fed by multiple sides, so that the LGS can, you know, if you order more from your distributor, you get more of the product that you want for your, you know, for the players. So like, it's all an ecosystem. Why are we all fighting? Why can't we just do our job, stay in line? Why can't, you know, game developers keep us in line so that this whole thing can just kind of move? It can just kind of, we can all move forward. And, you know, game developers can make money. LGSs, you can make money. Distributors, you can make money. Collector investors, you can make money. And players, you can save money because your cards will be worth more. That's my rant. I don't know. I just think that I'm sick of hearing the comments. I'm sick of hearing the comments that investors, collectors don't matter. I'm sick of hearing the conversation that the metas, you know, don't matter. every single one of you matters. Every single person that's involved in the trading card industry, whether you're just somebody who likes the art, so you create a Facebook group that's just like, hey, look at how good the art is. That all matters. And I don't understand why at any point you would not want any other card game or any other relationship with people in the trading card industry to not be successful. The more that we are involved in this ecosystem as players, collectors, investors, content creators, as LGSs, as distributors, as big box companies, the more that we are involved in this ecosystem, the more successful the game developers that we love are. And that's super important. Hey, remember to be kind to the people around you. Let me know what you think about this stuff in the comment section. Super interested. Hope you have a great day. And remember to be kind to the people around you. All right, bye.